Peace and Pan-Africanism, peace and Pan-Africanism. This is your big brother, DR.UMAR Ifatunde Oguntade. Just a couple of thoughts. Number one, on the incident in Pennsylvania involving President Trump this past Saturday, I want to say that I believe that that was completely staged by the white power structure of America. I believe the President Trump incident was completely staged by the power structure of America. I want to say that the President Trump incident was completely staged by the power structure of white America. Why do I say that? There have been 6 attempted presidential assassinations in this country. There has been 6 attempted presidential unalivings in this country. There have been 6 attempted presidential unalivings in this country. Let's take a quick look. We have President Abraham Lincoln. He was the first president in American history to be unalived in April of 1865. April of 1865. And then we have President Garfield. He was the second president to be unalived in American history in 1881. 1881. Then President McKinley was the third president to be unalived in America in 1901. 1901. After we have the unaliving of President McKinley in 1901, the next presidential unaliving would be President John F. Kennedy on November the 22nd of 1963. November the 22nd of 1963. Following the unaliving of President John F. Kennedy, there were 2 unsuccessful attempted unalivings. Those 2 unsuccessful attempted presidential unalivings was President Ronald Reagan in 1981. President Ronald Reagan, 1981. President Ronald Reagan, 1981. And then, of course, President Donald Trump on July the 13th, 2024. Let me ask you a couple questions. Do you believe in political coincidence? I don't believe in political coincidence. Whenever you have political coincidences, you have conspiracy, you have strategy, you have planning, and you have deliberate intent. The last 2 presidents to undergo an attempted unaliving were both Republicans. The last 2 presidents to undergo attempted unalivings were both Republicans. President Ronald Reagan was a Republican. President Donald Trump was a Republican. And both of them were non-traditional politicians. Both of them were non-traditional politicians. Both of them were non-traditional politicians. President Ronald Reagan came over from Hollywood. He was an entertainer. President Ronald Reagan came over from Hollywood. He was an entertainer. He was governor of California before becoming president, but nonetheless, he did not have a traditional political career. President Donald Trump was also a non-traditional politician. He came over from the business sector. He came over from the world of entrepreneurship. President Ronald Reagan's attempted unaliving happened a few months after he was just elected in his first term. President Donald Trump's attempted unaliving takes place a few months before he seeks a second term. I'm bringing this up to say that I believe that President Donald Trump's unaliving was done by the power structure so that they could intensify the martyr narrative that the Republican National Convention is pushing on the American people to engender Donald Trump into the American public's heart so that they will vote for him in this November. That attempted unaliving, which I believe was completely staged for Donald Trump, I believe, to me, my opinion at this time based on the evidence, and it could change, but my opinion right now is that Donald Trump is the white power structure's selection to be president of the United States this November. Again, my opinion could change based on subsequent evidence and information. But as of right now, I believe that Donald Trump is the power structure's choice to be the next president. Otherwise, it would have not been necessary to stage an attempted unaliving so Donald Trump could look more like a martyr, more like a victim. He's already looking like a martyr. He's already looking like a victim. He's already looking like he's up against the American power structure after being convicted of a felony, after being charged with a felony, being the only president in American history to be convicted of a felony while holding office. And now an attempted unaliving, and now an attempted unaliving, and now an attempted unaliving. I believe without question that Donald Trump is the power structure's choice, and they're doing everything they can to paint him like he is a victim of unfair targeting, unfair slander, and unfair cheating by the Democratic National Convention. Now, when Ronald Reagan was shot in 1981, he also wasn't too popular at the time. And that shooting helped to improve his standing in popularity amongst the American public. Same thing with Republican former president and presidential hopeful Donald Trump. Now let me alert y'all to something else, my brothers and sisters. Please hit the Cash App $FDMG School. Please hit the Cash App $FDMG School. Please hit the Cash App $FDMG School. Please hit the PayPal, paypal.me/FDMG Academy. Please hit the PayPal, paypal.me/FDMG Academy. Please mail in your check or money order payable to the FDMG Academy, P.O. Box 9634, Wilmington, Delaware. Please donate, send your check or money order payable to the FDMG Academy, P.O. Box 9634, Wilmington, Delaware, 19809. You can also text message me for that information, 215-989-9858, 215-989-9858. 215-989-9858. If you need to text me to schedule a podcast interview, life coaching section, consultation, lecture, seminar, whatever you need. Here's another point I want to bring up to y'all about these 6 attempted presidential unalivings. Let me hit y'all up with another point that I want you to understand, understand, and overstand about these 6 attempted presidential unalivings in American history. Okay? President Abraham Lincoln was unalived on a Friday. President Abraham Lincoln was unalived on a Friday. President McKinley was unalived on a Friday. President John F. Kennedy was unalived on a Friday. President Abraham Lincoln was unalived on a Friday. President McKinley was unalived on a Friday. President Garfield was unalived on a Saturday. President Ronald Reagan's attempted unaliving was on a Saturday. President Donald Trump's attempted unaliving was on a Saturday. Brothers and sisters, can I ask you a question? Why is it that 3 of the 6 attempted presidential unalivings were on a Friday, and the other 3 attempted presidential unalivings were on a Saturday? Do you believe in coincidences? Because I don't. Do you believe in political coincidences? Because I don't. I'm going to say it again. Abraham Lincoln was unalived on a Friday. John F. Kennedy was unalived on a Friday. President McKinley was unalived on a Friday. Donald Trump's attempted unaliving, Saturday. Ronald Reagan attempted unaliving, Saturday. President Garfield's unaliving, a Saturday. Why do they only attempt unalivings on Fridays and Saturdays? Why do they only attempt unalivings on a Friday or Saturday? Because there's less security, less bureaucracy. There's more opportunity for success. Listen to me, brothers and sisters. Listen to me, brothers and sisters. I want you to understand, overstand, and understand. When you study the FBI, when you study the CIA, when you study the Department of Homeland Security, When you study the National Security Agency, they are too perfect in what they do. There is no way anybody could have got anywhere near Donald Trump last Saturday in Pennsylvania to attempt an unaliving without the participation of the state. Are you listening to me? The FBI, they do a thorough search. The CIA, thorough search. Homeland Security, thorough search. National Security Agency, thorough search. You don't get no weapon anywhere near a president. Not only that, the presidents have about a dozen body doubles. The presidents have about a dozen body doubles. The presidents have about a dozen body doubles. Barack Obama had body doubles. Joe Biden has body doubles. Donald Trump has body doubles. They use these body doubles whenever they suspect that there might be a threat. They will send an imitation body double in to a threat area to sniff out the perpetrator. There's no way in hell they were not aware of a threat. There's no way in hell anybody with a weapon gets anywhere near Donald Trump. And there's no way in hell he has the opportunity to wave a fist. There's no way he wipes blood off his face and wave a fist if this was a real attempted unaliving. This was a publicity stunt to improve his popularity. This was a publicity stunt to improve his popularity. Let me ask you a question. 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 Barack Obama, President Barack Obama, President Barack Obama received more unalived threats than any president in American history. Barack Obama received more threats on his existence than any president in American history because of his color, although he was not loyal to it because of his color. Do you want me to believe that Barack Obama served as president of the United States for 8 consecutive years, the most death threats of any president in American history, and he never experienced an attempted unaliving? Barack Obama never experienced an attempted unaliving. And you want me to believe that President Donald Trump, as popular as he is, although the media tried to make him appear unpopular, as popular as Donald Trump is, among Caucasian Nation. Caucasian Nation means white America. As popular as Donald Trump is amongst Caucasian Nation, you want me to believe that somebody attempted to unalive him without the participation of the U.S. government, but President Barack Obama, who received the most death threats of any president in American history, never ever received an attempted unaliving. Don't play games with me. We know Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, not for helping slaves, because he did not care about enslaved Africans. Abraham Lincoln wasn't assassinated for helping slaves, because he didn't care about enslaved Africans. Abraham Lincoln was assassinated because he wanted the American government to print its own money. Abraham Lincoln wanted to take American currency out of the private banks. I'm going to say it again. Do your research. You don't have to believe me. Do your research. You don't have to believe me. President Abraham Lincoln was unalived because he wanted to take American money out of the private banks. That's why he was unalived. President John F. Kennedy was also unalived because he considered taking American money out of the private banks, not to mention his brother, Robert F. Kennedy, threatened to take down the mob, the same mafia that helped his brother get elected president. You cannot bite the hand that feeds you. RFK tried to take down the same mafia that helped his brother get elected president of the United States. John F. Kennedy also wanted to take American money out of the private banks. No president has ever been murdered in American history unless the government ordered the hit. I'm going to say it again. No president has ever been murdered in American history without the government ordering the unaliving, brothers and sisters. Let's go to the good Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. For those of y'all who believe President Trump's unaliving was not staged, let's go to the good Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the most thoroughly planned governmental assassination in American history. The most thoroughly planned governmental assassination in American history. The most thoroughly planned governmental assassination in American history. The good Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King was assassinated by a sharpshooter from the Memphis Police Department. We know this. We know this is bona fide fact. Dr. King was assassinated by a sharpshooter of the Memphis Police Department. The Green Berets of the U.S. military were the backup shooters. The Green Berets of the U.S. military were the backup shooters in the Dr. King execution. The Green Berets were the backup shooters in Dr. King's execution. Let me say this. When the U.S. government carries out a political assassination, they always have backup shooters. When the U.S. government carries out political assassinations, they always have backup shooters. When the U.S. government carries out political assassinations, they always have backup shooters. Dr. King was not a sitting president. He was president of Black America, as I am today, but he was not a sitting president. Dr. King was president of Black America, as I am today, but he was not a sitting president. You mean to tell me they would have a backup shooter for Dr. King? They would have a backup shooter for Dr. King, but they wouldn't have a backup shooter for President Trump. Make it make sense. They had a backup shooter for El Hajj, Malik El Shabazz, Malcolm X. They had backup shooters for El Hajj, Malik El Shabazz, but they didn't have a backup shooter for President Donald Trump. You can fool some of the people all the time, and you can fool all the people some of the time. You can fool some of the people all the time, and you can fool all the people some of the time. You can fool some of the people all the time, and you can fool all the people some of the time. But you can't fool the Prince of Pan-Africanism none of the time. You can't fool the Prince of Pan-Africanism none of the time. You can't fool the Prince of Pan-Africanism none of the time. Columbia, South Carolina. Columbia, South Carolina. Where is South Carolina? Where my South Carolina Africans at? I am not talking to pretendians. I'm talking to Africans. I am not talking to pretendians. I am talking to Africans. Where my South Carolina Africans at? Where my South Carolina Africans at? I will see y'all next Wednesday, July the 24th, 7 p.m. at the House of Hathor, 6319 Main Street in Columbia, South Carolina. I will see you next Wednesday, July the 24th, 7 p.m. at the House of Hathor, 6319 Main Street in Columbia, South Carolina. Columbia, South Carolina. Columbia, South Carolina. Next Wednesday, July the 24th at 6319 Main Street. Pull up, show up and show out. Columbia, South Carolina. I'm back for the first time since Juneteenth 2 or 3 years ago. I'm back for the first time since Juneteenth 2 or 3 years ago. Miami Gardens, Florida. Miami Gardens, Florida. Where are my South Floridian Africans? Where are my South Floridian Africans? Where are my South Floridian Africans? I will be speaking in Miami Gardens next Saturday, July the 27th at 3 o'clock. The event is from noon until 7. We will be at 2820 Northwest 167th Terrace, just like last year. We're going to run it back. We're going to run it back. Just like last year, we're going to run it back. Miami Gardens, Saturday, July the 27th. DR.UMAR speaks at 3. The event is from 12 until 7. 2820 Northwest 167th Terrace. It is the day of the direct descendants of Africans enslaved in America. It is a celebration of Africans enslaved in America, the descendants of Africans enslaved in America. Okay? Come and learn about an organization that fights for the American African but does not alienate non-American Africans, because it is Pan-Africanism or perish. It is unify or die. We rise together or we don't rise at all.